the saddest feeling nowadays that all my dreams are much too far away. Sometimes the nights got me aching, working hours in the cold. And I can't imagine how it feels to end up where you feel you had to go. I've been lost, starving, praying nothing else will go wrong. I guess we're all dying, waiting for the world to lose control. Could you tell me what it's really like to feel like you've got the world by your side? 'Cause trust me, babe, I've done my good, give all I had and a little more than I should.
Okay, first off, we're not even dating. Second of all, I don't even like him. Third, he's probably running out of fuel soon, so God knows if he'll ever make it back here.
I'm back, bitches!
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It is off to a coffin start. Man, oh man, it's Friday Peace Talks. Hello, welcome. Delighted to see you. Wicked Foxy Dragon, how are you? Hello, Mars Falcon. Hello. Delighted to have y'all on board. Hello to everyone joining us. Hey, we got more Pixel Progressives here. Look at that. I put a pause on the actual cartoon show because upon reviewing some of the episodes, I'm going to leave them up just to have the balls to say I did. But upon review, some of the jokes could have been taken multiple ways, some of which I wasn't terribly comfortable with. So I'm gonna have a once-over with my buddy Dane, ask him to... he's always been the comedy writer in our little group. So I'm gonna ask him to help me write these things. In the meantime, hey, look at that. Wicked Foxy Dragon, you are now a Pixel Progressive. Let's put her up here. I love that program, that little animation program. Oh, good God. Anywho, it's Friday Peace Talks. We have a lot of fun stuff in the lineup already. I really have to stress that right before this, though, I was watching the interview on the Majority Report with David Feldman. I've already watched the David Dayen portion. We've actually clipped that. We're going to talk about it because he said something that I would like to share with the audience and put in my 2 cents on. But the David Feldman interview that followed it was the funniest GD thing. I had to stop watching it before we went live. I was trying to burn the last 10 minutes before 9 o'clock, and I was rolling. Sam's discomfort with Feldman's increasing bizarre behavior was just delightful, man. I really needed that. How are you? How's everybody doing on this Friday? Wireless Mike, hello. Good to see you, brother. Andrew Woznicki, hello. Delighted to see you. Yes, uncomfortable is fun when there's like a nice degree of separation. Here in my estimation is what makes uncomfortable comedy fun. It's only fun if you are dealing with somebody who is incredibly thick-skinned. Like Sam Cedar is thick-skinned, so I don't feel bad for him being in discomfort. It's like I don't know, watching Schwarzenegger get beat up in a movie. You're like, look at him. He's a slab of beef. He's fine. Similarly, that is how I feel watching uncomfortable comedy with Majority Report. Can barely sit through The Office. Makes me squirm too much. But the rest is there. Hey, guess what? How do you handle Terry's? You know, the classic enemy of America. Terrorists. How do you handle Terry's getting froggy? Well, I'll tell you. You,
Rags. Sklounced.
You don't take no guff. To that end, there is a gentleman by the name of Stuart Rhodes. That fella, surely, has earned himself the 18-year sentence, every inch of it, and I would argue more, that was just handed out to him in court. We're going to talk about that as well. I'm looking forward to it. Let's dive in. Probably going to play that clip again. Heads up, you're gonna get a twofer for sure if you're watching this live, which you are because I'm not recording yet. A gentleman by the name of Stuart Rhodes, turns out, is a terrorist. Uh-oh. Let's try that again. All right, neat. Let's just stop that recording. Do this whole thing over. A gentleman by the name of Stuart Rhodes is a terrorist, it turns out. And how do you handle terrorists in America? Well, we've had a couple of wise men explain to us how it's done. When you come across a terrorist, you...
Rags. Sklounced.
Exactly. That is what has happened in a court of law. Let's have a look at that. Stuart Rhodey Rhodes is now, I don't know what his nickname is now sentenced. Stuart Rhodes, the founder and leader, this is by Dylan Stableford, a senior writer for Yahoo News. Stuart Rhodes, the founder and leader of the Oathkeepers, was sentenced Thursday to 18 years in federal prison for seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Sorry, no year was necessary to give out there. Prosecution had sought 25 years. Still, it was the longest sentence handed down to a Republican to date for any of the more than 500 people convicted in the January 6 cases. Remember, the Justice Department is real hesitant to treat conservatives fairly. They need to use kid gloves because these are essentially evil children. Earlier this month, oh wait, I'm not supposed to be insulting. I take it back. Not conservatives in general, just Republicans. Earlier this month, Peter Schwartz of Kentucky was sentenced to 14 years for attacking police officers with pepper spray and a chair, Jesus Christ, as he stormed the Capitol. Rhodes was convicted in November following a 2-month trial, not that long, that showcased the far-right extremist group's violent plot to overturn President Biden's election and keep then-President Donald Trump in power. Rhodes' lawyers said he will appeal. Here's everything we know about the landmark case and the Justice Department's ongoing efforts to prosecute those who were involved in the deadly insurrection. What is seditious conspiracy again? This is the only section I want to read you because this is important. The seditious conspiracy law was enacted after the Civil War to deter Southerners from conspiring against the U.S. government. Of course, the law applies to everybody, but it was designed because Southerners were a bunch of goddamn traitors. If you want to restore your reputation, Southerners, don't act like a bunch of goddamn traitors. The crime occurs when two or more people conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force those in power. Sedition has rarely been charged in the United States. Let me just back that up. The crime occurs when two or more people conspire, greedy little evil see you next Tuesdays, conspire together to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force those in power. And they do so, by the way, in this case, to make sure that we are not fairly represented. They disagreed with who won the election, and so they tried to take away the American people's right to choose. Isn't it funny how that's always happening with those folks? Whether it be conservatives in 1776 trying to make sure that we bow down to a king in the United States, someone who was simply born into power, or whether it was in 1864 when Southerners were trying to make sure that we had to bow down to slave masters, simply because somebody was born into that position of power. They were wealthy and white, and so they got to tell other Americans what to do, literally whip them if those Americans didn't do as they were told. Again, it's just simply, this is not an insult. This is a statement of conservative tendencies. It is to bow down to somebody who is not elected. And again, in 2021, trying to make sure that Americans had to bow down to someone that wasn't elected, someone who was simply born rich and said cruel things. And so a minority of the country wanted them in power and wanted the majority of us to not have our will done. Sedition has rarely been charged in the United States. According to the Associated Press, the last time U.S. prosecutors brought a seditious conspiracy case prior to the Rhodes case was in 2010, when 9 members of the Hutterite militia in Michigan, were charged with inciting an uprising against the government. They were acquitted on the sedition conspiracy charges at a 2012 trial. They really should not have been, by the way. That is a massive, that's a shame on my state that no one currently in power is going to be able to live down. Plain and simple. Rhodes and 10 of his co-conspirators were the first Jan 6 defendants charged with sedition. Has anyone else been convicted of it? Yes, Kelly Meggs, leader of the Oathkeepers Florida chapter, and one of Rhodes's co-defendants, was also found guilty of seditious conspiracy and sentenced Thursday to 12 years in prison. It's either a lisp or a slur with me. You're just going to have to choose, because I got jowly cheeks, and that's what happens. Real quick, talking about Michigan. And we don't need to stick here. Let's go back to the big screen. So real quick, talking about Michigan. I often say that Michigan is not better or worse than other states. It is simply on a different pattern. It's slightly ahead in terms of the chain of events. But yeah, Michigan had a massive... It first had a massive representation problem. And during that time, we developed a massive militia problem, a terrorist problem. No different than you'd imagine in Afghanistan. Literally, dudes running off and living in the hills. Except that Monday to Friday, they would then come back and pretend like they were decent members of society instead of the filth that they were. So, and by the way, that is, it's fine to call terrorists filth in all scenarios. So, yeah, Michigan is a great microcosm for the rest of the country. If you want to know what the rest of the country is likely to do, well, in Michigan, we got sick of our terrorist problem. We had a couple of close calls, and then we finally dealt with it. Unfortunately, we didn't truly, really, and honestly deal with it until we had, I don't know if you'd call it our version of January 6th. Or if whatever happened, if the Wolverine Watchman case was the baby version of a much worse thing that's to come. But we had our rock bottom, which is a group of terrorists called the Wolverine Watchmen, tried to kidnap our governor and blow up a bridge, and war tactics. And they were going to try her in their own personal court in their basement somewhere, by which, and they had stated that the end result of that was almost certainly going to be execution. So the heroic Dana Nessel, Attorney General of Michigan, contacted the news agencies one day and said, "Get ready for tomorrow." Didn't give us anything more than that. Just said, "Get ready for tomorrow. Have your A-team there, because it's going to be a busy day for you." It was a courtesy. And when that happened, it turns out tomorrow was the arrest of the Wolverine Watchman and the breaking of that story. Why tie that in? Because look at what is happening now. In Michigan, those arrests and eventual convictions were a prelude to the how do I put this? The waking up of the state, the just being done with GOP nonsense of the state. It led to the current situation we have now, where Democrats control everything and the state is being run very, very well. Are they progressives? No. No, they are. We have Whitmer is I would say she's a centrist Democrat. She's not a conservative. Jocelyn Benson leans a little more, believe it or not, conservative. Still a Democrat, but that's our Secretary of State. She's a little more of a resistant to change type person. And then Dana Nessel, she's a little more left, despite the fact that she's a cop. She's a prosecutor, essentially, as the Attorney General. That's just how it shakes out. How does this relate to Rhodes? Hopefully America is over the hard part. That's what I'm hoping. Hopefully January 6th was the Wolverine Watchman's attempt. Yada yada yada. But boy, 18 years. Folks, I don't know. Rhodes in court. Let me look at what this Twitter fella said. Rhodes in court said that. Let me pull all this up here. He showed no remorse. His defense said it was. Let's see. Who got the Million MAGA? This is what his defense said. Who got the Million MAGA rally started? Who got the Stop the Steal rally started? Who got J6 started? It wasn't Mr. Rhodes, says his defense. Had Mr. Rhodes not showed up in D.C., J6 would have still happened. I agreed so far. If you want to put a face on J6, says Mr. Rhodes' defense. This is from Scott McFarlane in a Twitter thread. That link is in the descriptions. Right-wing media he blames, yada, yada, yada. And then Rhodes stand up. And Rhodes stands up in his own defense, is talking about why he should be sentenced lightly, and he says, "We protect people outside of Trump rallies against Antifa." Then he accuses Antifa of targeting unarmed victims. For the record, every accusation is a confession. Truly, right-wingers do interrupt peaceful protests and try to start violence. Antifa does not do that. Antifa is not an organization. It's a belief system that all Americans should have. It is being anti-fascist. Everybody around the world, I just assume they're decent people, and therefore I assume upon meeting them, first and foremost, that they are Antifa. I give you all, watching now, the credit of assuming you're Antifa. Mr. Rhodes was not remorseful. Mr. Rhodes blamed people that stand against fascism for his violent behavior. He did not renounce his behavior. And he got 18 years out of a possible 25. I guess my question would be, what is worse than Mr. Rhodes' behavior? What is more seditious than literally trying to overthrow an election? I would have gone the full 25. What is, in other words, you want to interrupt his sentence early and give him and give him parole. You do that after he's demonstrated that prison has had an effect on the man. That prison has had an effect on him. I don't think our current prison system works very well for reforming people, frankly, but the way it is supposed to work, and if we're not going to change it, then we need to operate as though it's working correctly, folks. The way it's supposed to work is that if this guy has been reformed partway through his sentence, a board can review it and choose to end the sentence early. Say, okay, he's learned his lesson. Let him go. Right now, guy hasn't reformed. And so the judge, you have to ask, what are they communicating? When they have a possible 25-year sentence they can hand out for sedition, for betraying the country, and they say, I'm not going to hand out the max sentence for this. They're saying this wasn't as bad a case as could be. So my question would be, what's worse about it? Because I'll tell you, what they're communicating, what I hear, is that it's not like this was a lefty trying to overthrow a right-leaning government. He's still not allowed to do that technically. Technically, he's still not allowed to overthrow the government. But it's not, it's a good right-leaning, good old boy trying to overthrow a Democrat. So, you got to take that into consideration. That's the impression I get. And that's unacceptable. So overall, is it good news? Yes, 18 years is at least a serious sentence. Don't forget, this is a country that is happy to give out 6 months of probation to punks like this. It literally wouldn't have surprised me if that would have been, it would have infuriated me, but not surprised me if that would have been what the judge did. But it's still an unacceptable message that has been communicated. Now, I'm sure when I read the judge's, and truth be told here, I have not read the judge's full opinion yet. I'm sure when I do, they're going to say something along the lines of, Mr. Rhodes did not shoot at anybody on January 6th. Mr. Rhodes did not take any hostages, yada, 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 yada. But to me, having seen one too many cases where you have to give the benefit of the doubt for a conservative, and one too many cases where it's a left-leaning person who's on trial and you're not allowed to give the benefit of the doubt. I just don't buy it. And I don't think it's an acceptable sentence. But this is Friday Peace Talks, so I want to hear what y'all have to say. I'm gonna kick out of this. Let's look at the comments. Ripes. Dawned on me, proud member of Antifa. Hell yes. Oh, you can't be a member, but still. No, you know what? I consider myself a proud member of Antifa. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. The only reason I would hesitate to say that is I wouldn't want to bring down the reputation of anti-fascists by association with me. But the anti-corporatist says, this stream was hard to find. Oh, no. I've been trying to work on that. I've been trying to get WYCD in literally every title I put up. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I think as the channel grows, and it's still growing at a pretty decent pace, pretty good clip. I think as it grows, it will become easier, just because it'll have a bigger imprint on the algorithm. But we'll see. Dawned on Me said, I was really hoping he'd get the max. Me too. Franny P, agree with you, Jake. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think all of us are generally of this opinion, where the obvious dual nature of our justice system is just being thrust in our face again and again and again. But honestly, it's not even the courts that's doing it. I mean, they're keeping this going. They're the judgment of our judges is certainly the initial cause of the problem, but the fact that it is the way that it is getting thrown in our faces time and again by ultra conservatives who are terrorists. Well, hey, what do you say? What do you say? We look at a lady who seems to agree with this. We're talking about the same thing, but this is on MSNBC talking about this very topic. I have not watched this yet, and it took me a great deal of restraint. I'm trying something a little different as well. I hope you'll appreciate this. But I don't want to interrupt Joy Reid the entire freaking time. So those are my thoughts going in. Now let's see what cable news has to say. Well, Joy Reid was discussing the Stewart Rhodes sentencing on Thursday. I thought we'd have a little look at it together. This is Friday Peace Talks. Let's talk about this piece. Watch it, and you tell me. Do you see a bias here? Do you see a bias that leads to untruth? Do you see problems with this piece, or do you think it's good? Let me know. We're both going to talk. We're going to talk about it on the other side.
That is the sentence a federal judge handed down to Elmer Stewart Rhodes, founder of the right-wing extremist group, the Oathkeepers. Rhodes was convicted of seditious conspiracy related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. It is the longest sentence so far handed down to any of the January 6th insurrectionists. In delivering the sentence, Judge Amit Mehta said Rhodes presents an ongoing threat and a peril to this country and to the republic and to the very fabric of this democracy. Yet the judge chose to give Rhodes less than the 25 years that prosecutors were seeking, which was well within the federal guidelines. It wasn't as if Rhodes was showing any remorse in court today. The judge even said so. Appearing in an orange jumpsuit, Rhodes called himself a political prisoner and said the only crime he committed was opposing those who are, quote, destroying our democracy. Also notable during his sentencing, Rhodes took the time to endorse the man who brought him to the Capitol that day, wishing for Donald Trump to win the 2024 presidential election. Perhaps it has something to do with Trump.
So just to be clear, the guy has been absolutely level with everyone that he has not learned anything, that he has no remorse, that given the opportunity, he would do it again. That's what we're dealing with. Really, we're not going to get true justice in this country until we demand it.
Trump's promise to pardon many of his January 6 foot soldiers.
Christ.
Rhodes is one of 10 defendants from the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys convicted of seditious conspiracy. His fellow Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs was also sentenced today to 12 years behind bars. I'm joined now by Frank Figluzzi, former Assistant Director for Counterintelligence at the FBI and an MSNBC national security analyst. Great to see you, Frank. I want to play what Stewart Rhodes' defense team said after this whole sentencing was over. Here they are.
Based on Judge Mehta's belief of what the facts show and his recitation of that yesterday and today, I believe that was lower than what I thought Mehta would do.
was lower than you thought?
Today.
Yeah.
After today, I thought it would be higher.
I anticipated much higher than an 18-year sentence. Not that I agree with the sentence, but I anticipated much more based on the way that he was leading up to it.
Correct.
Frank, I agree with them. Just reading through what the judge was saying, the way he blasted Elmer Rhodes, I was surprised that it was only 18 years. Were you?
Joy, I'm with you on this. Look, it's a stiff sentence, but I compare it to other federal crimes. You rob a couple of banks, you're looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. You commit and are convicted of what I believe to be the second most severe charge the federal government can throw at you, seditious conspiracy. The only thing worse would be treason, betraying the country while at war, and you get 18 years. You try to rob the country of its democracy, not money in a bank. You try to rob it of the peaceful transition of power. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Even Rhodes's lawyers thought that the judge's understanding of the facts should result in a harsher punishment. Again, they were saying what they disagree with was the judge's understanding of the facts. That's bias. That is the bias people are talking about. When people, if it ever feels to you like white privilege is this sort of nebulous thing that you can never really find a direct example of, it's just something you kind of know when you see it. No, it's this. Really, it's conservative privilege, and really, it's the privilege of people that serve the rich. Ultimately, it is the privilege granted to the oligarchs and their servants in the United States of America. Yes, there's truly white privilege that you get just for being a white person. Okay, yeah. But if you want to talk about what it looks like functionally, this is it right now. In other words, the judge agreed largely with the prosecution's facts, and then they used their judgment to say, but we shouldn't go that hard on him. And you know what? If all judges did that in all cases, I'd be fine with it. In fact, I am down for changing the laws so that they require less jail time. But if we have the laws that we have, then guess what? We need, within those laws, to define for the American people how bad the American government feels this was a violation of those laws. And if the max sentence is 25 years, boy howdy, brother should have got 25 years.
I think it's stiff, but it's still too light. And nevertheless, there is some good news coming out of this, Joy, in the sense that we're already seeing a chilling effect from this prosecution of Oathkeepers leadership. Folks in law enforcement who signed up years ago for something called Oathkeepers, they didn't know what they were signing up for. Many of them now saying, hey, time out. I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up for seditious conspiracy. So there's that. There's also a blow with this sentence to the militia movement. Not the hardcore, die-hard domestic terror guys who are all in on chaos and anarchy. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the folks out there who are going, yeah, maybe not. Maybe I'm not showing up for the violence, you know?
Yeah.
So
before Joy goes off here, I don't want to seem, I really, really want to be clear. I don't want to be accused of being a hypocrite later. I don't want to seem like I'm all for locking people away for decades and decades. I think that's a bad way to run a country. But the reality is that is the way we run our country. And in that context, we need to demonstrate for the American people that it's the deterrence effect that I'm concerned about. We need to tell them how bad this was. And what we just said was this was bad, but wasn't as bad as it could have been. Now, something else we got to get into. A bunch of cops just found out they were in a terrorist organization. And some of them, but not all, Jesus Christ, some of them are saying, I no longer want to be in this terrorist organization. We need to make it a law that if you're going to be the muscle of the government in the United States, if you're going to carry a gun in my name, in your name, you can't also be a terrorist. The Oathkeepers is a terrorist organization, so we need to make it crystal clear that any cop that chooses to remain an Oathkeeper has got to go and be banned from being a police officer forever. Banned from the military forever. Because we cannot allow them to carry firearms in our name. We can't legitimize a terrorist organization in any way, shape, or form. In addition, we should probably have a little talk with those folks that joined this terrorist organization and are now leaving it about what the appeal was. Because my concern is that those things that appealed to them haven't gone away. They just don't like the look now that it's exposed to the light of day. And they're going to try to find another shadowy organization to join to harass Americans, to betray the country.
Maybe I'm not showing up for the violence, you know?
Yeah.
So
and I'm guessing there's some, and also, if people really believe that Donald Trump gives a damn about any of these people and is going to pardon them, I got a bridge to sell them, the Brooklyn Bridge, and you can have it for a mere, $5.95. Like, he doesn't care about these people.
Hold up. He absolutely will pardon them. Sorry, Joy, but he will pardon them. It's a political he will gain praise for pardoning them. He doesn't. She's right that he doesn't care about them, but he can use them, and if he and he uses their pardons as a re-election talking point, and if he can fulfill that request as soon as he gets into office, he'll do that. And by the way, then he'll have a bunch of people that are muscle for him. Those will be the brown shirts. We need to be crystal clear about how serious this is. He will pardon them, and he will give them authority within the U.S. government. He will allow militias to become a regular thing that is legally allowed to harass us. We're going to have to scrap if Donald Trump gets elected again. We're going to have to. Because he will absolutely turn the militias loose on us. Don't let that happen, and don't downplay the threat of that.
I'm thinking if you are, and let's just go through, the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys have been convicted of seditious conspiracy. It's now a large group of people. If I'm, let's say, Enrique Tarrio, who, like Stewart Rhodes, Elmer Rhodes, was not physically at the Capitol, and he sees him get 18 years. This guy's 58 years old. He won't be out till he's in his 70s. Not long enough, but pretty long. I'm thinking they've got to be worried, right? When they get sentenced.
Yeah. Look, I mean, who else do we know who's very high profile and wasn't inside the Capitol, as neither Enrique Tarrio or Stewart Rhodes were, but helped instigate, incite, coordinate, plan violence that day. Yeah. So that's people like Donald Trump, Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, who all must look at this. But you know who else is looking at this as kind of a beta test? I think Special Counsel Jack Smith is looking at this going, wow, we've had now two major cases, Proud Boys cases, Oath Keepers cases, very serious cases. DC juries aren't buying their stories. And he may be emboldened to really, really levy the most serious charges against Trump and his cohorts.
Do you think that this kind of a sentence, because it is stiff, we don't want to make it sound like we don't think that it is a rough sentence. It's 18 years is a long time. Do you think that this might help unlock some of the answers to the questions we haven't got answered? Who put those pipe bombs down? Like, do people start talking, just in your experience as an FBI official, does it loosen up people's remembrance and memories of the truth when they see people going away for this amount of time?
Such a good question. I got to praise it. I'm sorry, y'all. That is such a good question. I've been wondering, who put those pipe bombs down? Guess what? They put them by where the Democrats meet. That was an attempted assassination. It's shocking to me. It's shocking to me that has not been dealt with yet. I have not heard an update on that. Haven't heard a peep. We really should get to the bottom of that. And by the way, I bet the reason we haven't is because they got an inkling of who was involved, and they didn't want to have to deal with the political fallout of the truth. That's a major, major problem with Democrats in general, and or with Democrats specifically, and the U.S. government in general. It is not that we will directly, always, give a pass. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we'll do a pardon for villains. But it's not like we always directly just say, no, it was a Republican that did it, so we're not going to prosecute. No, what we do is as soon as we find out that a Republican was likely involved, we just stop investigating. We can't go on like this. What happened with the Supreme Court leaks? It started to look like Alito was the one who leaked, and the investigation stopped. What happened with the pipe bombs? Well, gosh. Maybe we're going to find out that Marjorie Taylor Greene knew something about that. Maybe Lauren Boebert, in between domestic disturbance calls with her husband, knew something about that. But we stopped investigating because we're not interested in justice with the U.S. Department of Justice. We're just interested in keeping the population calm, passive, pliant, weak.
Time to maybe turn state's evidence.
Oh yeah, this could be come to Jesus time for a lot of folks who are thinking, I'm not doing a plea deal, I'm not cooperating. Now they look at 18 years for Rhodes and they go, maybe I will cooperate and start talking. So I think you're going to see some cooperation deals. You'll start seeing some plea deals for some of these folks, and they'll be quietly cooperating. That's the hope here anyway.
You'll find out who has the highest IQ among these people who are all, on the loser end of the spectrum when one of them starts talking. That's the smart one. Frank.
Look, I know Joy Reid has not historically been a great TV personality. In 2020, I was not a fan of Joy Reid. In fact, I outright disliked her. Joy Reid of 2023 is effing awesome. She's killing it. True. I don't think she gives a fair shake to progressives. I think she has a knee-jerk reaction that most people who live in fancy houses and drive fancy cars do. Or most people that live well have when they hear progressive politics. They hear about helping others and they go, ooh. But when she's dealing with conservative terrorism, right on. Right on, my friend. Yeah. More of what we were talking about before. I agree with all that. And I think of course, more and more I've been saying this, cable news is singing the right song. Cable news is presenting arguments to an audience that is used to being passive, that is used to just the normal way of things going, being letting Republicans, conservatives, get away with whatever they want just because they're Republicans. They're our betters in the eyes of American culture. Nonsense. They are the Republican Party. And now I'm not talking about conservatives. I'm talking about the literal party. They are a criminal organization. And we are about to officially deal with that. And we should be asking the kind of questions that any other sane country would ask, such as, who tried to assassinate the Democrats? Probably a good thing to figure out, huh? Delighted that Joy Reid is pushing for it on MSNBC. Delighted that your peers or Americans that generally watch the news but don't pay very close attention to it are finally seeing messages like this. It's fantastic. Let's see what you all have to say. And we're done talking about roads. Jessica Jennings says, defunding ICE. No person is illegal. I went up. Nah, you push division based on gender, sexual preference, race, and religion. Interesting, Jesse Jennings. Yeah, I agree with Mars Falcon here. He says we literally push for acceptance and equal rights for all genders, races, and religions. What you claim is the opposite of reality, Jesse Jennings. Yeah, I agree with that. And folks, let me take over Jesse Jennings for a moment here. No, you don't. You push for entitlements and privileges. Interesting. Jesse Jennings says, "Why don't you fight for the basic human rights of babies not to have their genitals mutilated and tortured as routine?" Okay, Jesse Jennings. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I'd like you to think about your reply and give me, you got 200 characters. Give me a genuine answer here. Why do you think babies are having their genitals mutilated and tortured as routine? Do you believe that? Are you referencing circumcision? That's a religious practice, largely. I mean, actually, people do it. You're right. People do it for secular reasons in the United States. But I wouldn't want to. I don't know. There's truly a conversation to be had about that, about whether or not a baby can consent to it. Circumcision, yeah. Yeah, that's a legitimate question. I would consider fighting for a ban on circumcision. I'm not there yet. Once upon a time, people believed there were health benefits to it, even if it is for religion. That's the other thing. Like, that's a legitimately good question. I don't know why I said legitimately there. I just mean, like, it's one that I don't already have an answer to. It's one I haven't gone into a ton. Here's why I haven't gone into it a ton. Those babies survive. And right now, a lot of Americans' lives are in danger with immediate things. But then you bring up a good point. You say, Jesse Jennings says, should religious reasons be used as the excuse for removing any body part from the baby or just the foreskin? And you say, no. I'll tell you this. My instinct is to agree with you. If you want to know where I come down on it right now, I generally think that's something we should get rid of. But I am also, believe it or not, and this is going to shock probably most of the audience, once upon a time, I was literally conservative, as in I am slow to change. And I don't want to commit to that being something that I am all for. Also because, as Wireless Mike points out, I was circumcised. No complaints here. I'm not sure where you're going with this, Jesse, but I mean, let me just pause it at the point of contention. Should we ban it or not? My instinct is to say we probably should. But it has been something I have. I mean, it's of so little overall consequence to a person's existence, whether you've got that flap of skin or not. I put it around like the same level of morality as should you be allowed to pierce a baby's ears or not. Jesse Jennings, bringing it to its logical conclusion, what else should be the parent's choice? Removing the clitoris or ear? Plenty of laws already that are supposed to these babies. Yeah. I would say this. My final word on it. I think you've got a good point. I'm going to consider it. I'm probably not going to take a firm stance on it because to me right now there are larger problems. But I don't think you're wrong. I think you've got a good point. Well done. Anti-corporatist. I opted to not circumcise my son and let him decide as an adult. He's been 18 for over a year, and as far as I know, he's still uncut. Shrug. Oh, God. Wicked Foxy Dragon says about 110 deaths from circumcision per year. Yeah, that's part of why I want to look at this more before I really make a decision on it. I will say this. Man, I can't wait for like 2025. Like if we are living in the best timeline and America calms the F down and the rest of the world calms the F down, Russia gets the F out of any country it's trying to invade, we deal with this stuff. Wouldn't it be just lovely to like have a legitimate Schwanz debate? And look at the numbers, 110 deaths per year. Are any lives somehow saved by circumcision? I don't know. To look at that stuff. Oh, I look forward to that. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to be setting that aside, if I'm just being real with you, until we handle things like the debt ceiling and the mortaring of Ukrainian civilians and what have you. Not saying it's not something somebody should be thinking about. It's just it is a complicated topic, and it deserves more. I think it deserves more study than I have time to give at the moment. Or I may certainly, but not immediately. All right, we got more on here. Oh God. Oh. Okay, let's talk about the debt ceiling. If you guys are willing to sit through 2 court sentencing talks and David Dayen breaking down the debt ceiling for us, you may consider yourselves true political junkies. I got to tell you, this is a clip from the Majority Report's show earlier today. If you're not checking out the Majority Report, honestly, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, there's of use. There's something of use for you in there. Because even if you don't personally agree with what they have to say, there is no show on the internet or anywhere for that matter that does a better job, in my opinion, of expressing how people who are genuinely on the left, view politics. So even if you are somebody who is a centrist or right-leaning, this will be useful to you, because this is how at least I and the folks on the Majority Report view the debt ceiling fiasco as it currently stands. Christ. Nope. Okay, let's try that again. David Dayen was a guest on the Majority Report. Let's check it out. They're talking about the debt ceiling, and in my opinion, this is the perfect explanation for how lefties feel about the debt ceiling and why, in my opinion, we really need to be voting in primaries so that we have people that don't negotiate like Biden negotiates with terrorists,
etc. And so what the National Association of Government Employees is saying is that you've already hit the debt limit and you're hurting us. And money.
Let's go back a little bit.
But we're trying to pay all our bills with existing cash, money coming in, etc. And so what the National Association of Government Employees is saying is that you've already hit the debt limit and you're hurting us. And by the way, the debt limit is unconstitutional for reasons X, Y, and Z.
The White House and the administration had to respond to this, and they have.
I'm sorry. Let me just give you a little context here. Hold up. This is a court case. So these employees are employees of the government, and they are suing the government, saying that you do not have the ability to not pay the debt. And by not paying the debt, you are hurting us, your employees. And the point Sam Cedar is making, which I agree with, is the smart thing to do for Biden if your priority is to get the debt paid and to govern honestly, is to simply not contest the point. Say, they're right. We give up, court.
They could have weighed in on the side of the plaintiff and said, or basically said, we're not going to contest this. These plaintiffs, we're not going to defend this case. They have, but they've been a little bit cagey as to under what legal theory. And so tell us about that and tell us the potential implications of this. And this court case feels like the real deadline to me in some ways, but explain why I might feel that way.
Right. So as you say, the administration, basically the Justice Department, those are sort of the lawyers for the administration. The defendants in this case are Janet Yellen and Joe Biden. And the Justice Department, operating in their defense, said they're contesting what is known as a preliminary injunction, which would be sort of an immediate way to say the debt limit doesn't apply here. We're kind of putting a stay on it as we work through the court case. So they're objecting to that. They were asked earlier this week, actually, in a status conference. They were asked point blank, well, are you disagreeing on the merits, or do you have some other reason why you're disagreeing? And they were very, as you say, cagey about it. They were saying, I'm not authorized to say whether we disagree with the lawsuit per se, but we don't think this is a proper venue for this plaintiff to bring a preliminary injunction. So anyway, there's going to be a hearing next Wednesday, which is May 31st. The X date is supposed to be June 1st. The day before that, there's going to be a preliminary injunction. And actually, the funny thing about that is that the lawyers for the plaintiffs, for the union, said, well, the X date's June 1st. Shouldn't we go faster than May 31st for the hearing? And the government said, I don't. I mean, there were two funny things about that. First of all, the government said, I don't think that there's this kind of urgency. It takes a lot of coordination, and we don't need to be urgent. This is the same president who said, we face a time bomb like that is coming. Right.
But is that the real drop dead day though? Or is June 1st? It's June 1st-ish to kind of get this wrapped up.
June 1st-ish. There's a lot of, it's hard to have perfect clarity about this because the government, frankly, pays millions of bills every day.
Yeah.
And there's also lots of money coming in every day, and there's no kind of specifics on how much money is going to come in and how much is going to go out in a particular day. We have general beliefs along those lines, but we don't have the hard numbers until the money shows up.
People start sending in their second quarter tax estimates too around now, so you don't know how much money's coming in, and
you don't know when they're going to send those in. You don't know. I mean, here in California, by the way, we got our
And he's saying, by the way, I apologize for the mic there. He's saying, by the way, in California, which is the, I think, 13th largest economy in the world, they're not even going to pay their taxes until October. So that is a source of revenue that the government can draw from to spend, to pay for things. The only point I have with that debt ceiling talk is that Biden is playing games. I don't know. I can't honestly tell you that if AOC was made president, that things would operate any differently. Maybe. You're talking to someone who's never had a job in politics, not a once. But I've been an observer of politics on a professional level for 7 years. Oh, God, now 8. And despite that, I can't honestly say that AOC would operate any differently. Maybe there is a level of fuckery, excuse me for the language there, that is necessary, that I'm just too naive to get. But I'll tell you, I'm ready to try a genuinely progressive president. Because we have had a century. How long has it been since FDR was in power? The better part of a century since we've had anybody that you could consider truly progressive in the big seat. And the way things work when you have centrists and you have Republicans is a bunch of puppet shows, a song and dance for the American people. Well, while they don't genuinely pursue the things they care about, and coincidentally, all the things they pursue, be it Clinton, Bush, Sr. or Jr., Obama, Trump, all of them. Coincidentally, the one thing they all agree on is that billionaires get more of your money. Billionaires get bailouts. Regular people don't. My thoughts, and this, I'm going to get possibly blasted for this, but my thoughts are that we might not have even had bailouts for the American people during COVID without Trump in power. And it wasn't because Trump likes the American people. It's because he wanted to sign his name on a check. He wanted to use the government as a way to campaign for himself. It's not because he's a good person. But that's what it took for the American people to get some consideration. It took somebody so corrupt that they wouldn't even do the normal corruption. The American people had to accidentally get a check. Biden will almost certainly be president in 2024. The neat thing about him is that he follows the orders that the American people give. He doesn't actually give a shit about really, from what I've seen, any of the principles he has said to have, except, the real basic stuff, like we should be a democracy. Okay. If we can get a progressive mandate in 2024, we can move Biden. He will not encourage the House or the Senate to pass progressive bills. He will help centrists and conservatives, be they Republican or Democrat. He will help them look as good as he can. But he will not veto progressive bills. Particularly, he won't do it in a second term, because why the hell would he? We need to make sure that not only is there a blue House and a blue Senate, but there are a progressive House and a progressive Senate in 2024. That is what I get from this piece on the Majority Report with David Dayen. We're going to keep getting silly games like this. This current manufactured fiasco will be brought up by the next cinema and mansion. Even if we get a blue House and Senate, the conservatives in the Democratic Party will create these problems for the Republicans. It'll be the next unthinkable thing until we get people who have demonstrated that they are working first and foremost for the American people, and that they actually give a damn about the things that they say they care about. Why progressives? Incidentally, That's where I fall politically. But one of the reasons I fall there, and one of the reasons I would like you to consider supporting progressives in the primaries, is that the number one thing that makes you a progressive is being in opposition to big business. Not business, big business. Being in opposition to monopolies. Being in opposition to people that would take away the rights of workers. And what America lacks the most right now is that exact thing. Because we have had now, however long it's been since Reagan, years of neoliberal rule. And it has, in every country it's been tried, it has been shown this political theory by Milton Friedman et al., whatever, has just been shown to simply not work. Let's get rid of it. Let's get some progressives in there. Ooh. Talking about coalition building. Yes. Honestly, says the anti-corporatist, I just think that AOC is trying to figure out how best to get the socialist changes we want passed to come to fruition. She has come to have a lot of support amongst the mainstream Dems, especially some women. Yeah, that's true. Jesse Jennings says there is a cost to free. True. I'm looking for wherever the smallest cost is. Let's see here. Dawned on me. I like AOC, but hey, she's from a district in New York, not representative of the entire country. True. And I was using AOC as a stand-in for any progressive. It could be Ilhan Omar. It could be anybody. All I'm saying in bringing them up is that maybe we'll elect a progressive and they'll do the exact behavior that we've seen everybody else do, because there's some way the American government functions that I don't fully understand. Not myself being one of the people pulling the levers. I am merely a lever commenter. But it would be hard to imagine them doing a worse job than is currently being done. And at least if we got a progressive, AOC, whoever, Bernie, my God, Bernie. If we could get a Bernie Sanders, but like 20% more charismatic. If we got somebody like that in power, I think we would at least have honest leadership, even if it wasn't satisfactory. And first and foremost, I think that's what most Americans are aching for. Just honest leadership. Well, I got a couple more, but let me have a look here. I hope I gave you the right link. So if you got a clip that you would like to look at, drop it in the link that is pinned in the description. Not in the description, pinned in the comments. Mars Falcon, want to do something about the homeless? Vote progressive. Want big government out of your bedroom? Hands off your body? Vote progressive. Yes. I do think as a sales pitch for this, people should keep it short, exactly like that. When you raise taxes on corporations, says Jesse Jennings, do you think they pull that out of their own pockets, or do they lower wages, raise prices, and use less quality products? Actually, I can tell you exactly where they pull that out of. They pull that out of CEO bonus pay. They pull that out of stock buybacks. In fact, it has been noted that when you raise taxes on corporations, they invest more in the corporations. America's biggest era of economic growth was in the 50s and the 60s. And during that time, the tax rate was at like the top tax rate was at like 90% of every dollar earned. So tax the rich first and foremost, but yes, tax the corporations. Here's why. If you are a corporation and you know you're going to get taxed past a certain amount of dollars that you earn, you have a choice. You can put that money back in the company, in which case, by the way, it's not taxed, or you can give that to the government. Obviously, the corporations generally make the decision to reinvest in their company. That's how you get a company that's been around for 1,000 years, like Coca-Cola. I don't know, the 1890 something. It came to be, but 1850? No, it was later. It was anyway more than 100 years. However, if you don't tax the corporation, if you say no, you keep all your money. In fact, we're going to give you some just 'cause. What do they do with it? Well, we've seen now for decades. We've seen what they do. They don't reinvest in the corporation. They certainly don't pay their employees more. I was part of a company that made $4 billion in profit. $4 billion in profit. And I got a raise that was smaller than inflation. Whereas the CEO of that company got a massive, massive bonus. Similarly, that's what happens with all corporations. When you don't tax them, they do stock buybacks. They do they do CEO bonus pay. It's profit then for them to play with. And of course, they choose to make themselves richer because that's what they're there for. So it's a misconception to think that taxing a corporation means that the corporation won't reinvest in the company. No. The taxes generally don't apply to money that you spend on your company. It's the opposite of how it works. Wireless mic. Oh, anti-corporatist. Can't click on the spreadsheet link. You know what? Let me. I might have effed that up. In fact, let me try that again. I definitely effed that up. Let me create a new shareable link. Anyone with the link can edit, copy, done. Let me drop that in there. Removing the message. Here is a link. Click on that puppy, and it should work. While we are waiting on that, there is one more thing I want to look at. Let's talk about corruption in Texas. May as well record this puppy too, huh? One moment. Everybody hold up. Well, Texas seems to have a corruption problem. And so much drama. It's Republican on Republican drums. It's an interesting thing. You see Democrats getting after each other frequently. Although I'll admit less these days, but frequently. It's like necessary to being a Democrat that you trash other Democrats. Well, we got a real interesting case of that in Texas. Let's have a look. Oh, here we go. From the AP, Texas lawmakers issue 20 articles of impeachment against State Attorney General Ken Paxton. There he is. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton teetered on the brink of impeachment Thursday after years of scandal, criminal charges, and corruption accusation that the state's Republican majority had largely met with silence until now. In a unanimous decision, a Republican-led House investigative committee that spent months quietly looking into Paxton recommended impeaching the state's top lawyer on 20 articles, including bribery, unfitness for office, and abuse of public trust. The House could vote on the recommendation as soon as today. I'm sorry, I don't know if they did. I don't believe so, though. If it impeaches Paxton, he would be forced to leave office immediately. The move sets up what could be a remarkable, sudden downfall for one of the GOP's most prominent legal combatants who in 2020 betrayed the country by asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn President Joe Biden's victory. Absolute clown. That alone should have gotten him kicked out of office. It's just absolutely insane. Only 2 officials in Texas's nearly 200-year history have been impeached. Now, if you're thinking, Jake, but wait a minute. Well, President Biden wasn't, stop. Look at the court cases. Biden won fair and square. Quit whining about it. And anybody who was saying otherwise got laughed out of court, including Paxton, and has demonstrated that they did not have a strong case to begin with, meaning they didn't really believe the things that they said. They were just trying to subvert the will of the American people. Paxton has been under FBI investigation for years. So he'd already demonstrated. Have a look at the character of this guy that was saying Biden wasn't fairly elected. You just have a look at who he is. He was under FBI investigation for years over accusations that he used his office to help a donor. In other words, that's like classic being corrupt. Somebody who's in charge of facilitating the law, making sure it doesn't apply to somebody that gave them money, that is bribery. When the 5-member committee's investigation came to light Tuesday, Paxton suggested it was a political attack by the House's liberal Republican Speaker, Dade Phelan. Christ. He called for Phelan's resignation and accused him of being drunk during a marathon session last Friday. That I believe. Phelan's office brushed off the accusation as Paxton attempting to save face. Here's a wild thing. I think both are true. I fully believe that guy was hammered. I've seen the clips. And I also believe Paxton wouldn't care about it, except that he's trying to save face. It's a sad day for Texas as we witness the corrupt political establishment unite in this illegitimate attempt to overthrow the will of the people, the irony, and disenfranchise the voters of our state, Paxton said in an incredibly ironic statement on Thursday, calling the committee's findings hearsay and gossip, parroting long disproven claims. Can you believe the balls? It is only because Republican voters have demonstrated that they have no standards that this guy has a job. Republican voters, I expect more from you. Truly, you're better than this. We're all better than this. What the hell are you doing with this guy? This guy had the balls to say that long disproven claims were the reason why the will of the voters were being subverted. He's making fun of you, Republican voters. Paxton is making fun of you. That is literally what he tried to do to Joe Biden. And it is not true in his case. Let's have a look at what the evidence here. The articles of impeachment issued by the investigative committee, which include 3 Republicans, in other words, majority Republicans, and 2 Democrats, stem largely from Paxton's relationship with one of his wealthy donors. Let's make sure, they deal heavily with Paxton's alleged efforts to protect the donor from an FBI investigation and his attempts to thwart whistleblower complaints brought by his own staff. He's trying to stop whistleblower complaints. He is trying to keep the swamp swampy. The timing of a vote by the House is unclear. Representative Andrew Murr, the Republican chair of the investigative committee, said he did not have a timeline, and Phelan's office declined to comment because they are hesitant to actually hold this guy accountable because he is a Republican. If this was a Democrat, they would have had the vote. They would have stayed late Thursday and had the vote, and then they would have had a reenactment of the vote on Friday, and then they would parade a image of him around, and they would burn him in effigy, and then they would strip naked, cover themselves in blood, and have some sort of a satanic ritual. Whatever it is they do. Final removal would require 2/3 support in the Senate, where Paxton's wife, Angela, is a member. I will assume she'll do the decent thing and abstain from that vote. Obviously not. Look at what party she's part of. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a Republican and leader of the Senate, did not respond to requests for comment. Paxton, 60, faces ouster at the hands of GOP lawmakers, his own party, just 7 months after easily winning a 3rd term, for God's sake. This is after he betrayed the country. This is after he tried to undo the vote of the people. After easily winning a third term over challengers, among them George P. Bush, who had urged voters to reject a compromised incumbent, but discovered that many didn't even know about Paxton's litany of alleged misdeeds or dismissed the accusations as political attacks. Let me ask you something. Are you gullible? Have you already dismissed these accusations as just political attacks? Let's find out. So look, here's the summary. Paxton is accused of the worst and most blatant kinds of bribery. He has already shown himself to be unfit for office by attempting to overturn the will of the people in 2020. He is an attorney general. You know, if you're some knucklehead like me, you can maybe get away with saying, look, in 2020, I genuinely thought that the election was stolen because everybody who I listened to at the time lied to me. If you're Paxton, A.G. Paxton, you cannot do that because your realm of expertise is supposed to be the court. You are supposed to know damn well what you are doing when you do it in the court. He tried to take legal steps to overturn an election. I have seen the lack of evidence that he has. Let me show you all the evidence that Paxton has for overturning the election. I've got it right here. None. He's got to go. And Republicans have been forced into a position where they must address his corruption or endorse it. And they're already endorsing so much corruption. I'm glad that they are fighting. I'm glad that there are bad feelings between them. I'm glad that he is accurately accusing some of them as being drunks. Because I don't want them to come up with a deal for sparing this guy and letting him go on, be the attorney general. I have no doubt that Texas will put another attorney general in charge that will do a terrible job. But at least we will have established that corruption is not acceptable. Blatant corruption is not acceptable. And then we'll work from there. Let's see what y'all have to say. Huh. I think that it should be really alarming, says Dawned on Me, that this Paxton got reelected. It boggles the mind. Yeah. It tells you, I think, oh, Patrick Thibodeau, delighted to see you. I agree with you, Dawned on Me. It should be alarming. It tells us how insulated that voting community is. It really and truly. For example, you've got Jesse Jennings up here saying, we didn't vote for Biden or Fetterman. I don't know where he's getting Fetterman. So your jeers mean little. Look, Dr. Oz lost thoroughly to Fetterman. I don't know how he can even toss that in there. And the fact is, we did vote for Biden. He won. He got the most votes. And he won in the Electoral College, as well as, per usual, with the Democrat, he got the popular vote. More Americans wanted Biden as president. More importantly, more Americans didn't want Trump as president because Trump was a terrible president. And he thoroughly established that further when he committed sedition on January 6th. He attempted a coup. You've got to wake up to that, man. You got to. I invite you to join the real world with the adults. There are problems to solve. We are working on solving them. Let's start with dealing with reality. Case in point dawned on me. I think that it should be really alarming that this Paxton got reelected. It boggles the mind. Exactly. It's because folks like Jesse are caught in a media echo chamber where they don't even know about folks like Paxton. But folks like Jesse also give me hope, because Jesse clearly doesn't agree with me politically, but he's here. Jesse is present and listening, not agreeing, but listening. Cool. Jesse, I'm sorry you've become the focus here. It's not really a fair thing to do that to somebody, to make them the representative of their whole group. But hear me out on just this one thing. I don't ask you to agree with me tonight, or ever if you don't want. But I hope that at the end of this, you will understand what my beliefs are and be able to accurately state what they are, so that you at least understand what you disagree with. If I, and I'm sure I will, if I get wrong what your beliefs are, please correct me. And by the way, you're right. I've been a little scamp tonight. I've been doing jeers and teases, and that's not right. This is peace talks, and here I am instigating. I'll chill out with that. I'll knock it off. What I would love for you to do, if you're feeling up to it, is to educate me as well. Use that link in the description. Drop a video clip that you think we should watch to educate all of us. Maybe I'm just flat out wrong, and I'll tell you, there's people on YouTube that got a better on-air presence than me. So drop a link in there. Try to educate us, and even if I likely will disagree, but even if I do, I'll tell you why, and we can maybe learn how to work together from there. Nobody else pick on Jesse. We're gonna keep it just Jake and Jesse for now. Patrick Thibodeau, what did you say earlier? Jesse Jennings, says Patrick Thibodeau, I have voted for exactly 2 people who got elected president. Sometimes you had to roll with it. Yeah, it sucks. I'm replying to Wireless Mike, but I keep getting an error. Well, we all know that Wireless Mike is just a figment of our imagination. I have seen a lot of drugs in my day, and I thought it looked, this is Patrick Thibodeau, and I thought it looked like Felon was having a neurological event. Others have suggested pills, which I know nothing about frequently. That's fair. As a prodigious drunk myself, I just assume everybody's drunk all the time. I have to hand it to you guys. I usually get banned in a few minutes in the Republican and Democrat channels. Well, we're very hesitant to ban here, and I gotta tell you, even if I disagree with you politically, I appreciate the chutzpah of anybody that shows up in a political stream that doesn't necessarily agree with them and speaks their mind. And by the way, you've done so in a polite way. I love it. Honestly, it gives me hope. Even if it turns out that we're both wrong, and it turns out the right way to run a country is, I don't know exactly how, what's a random country? Czechoslovakia does it. Still, we're more likely to get there if we're working together. So it's probably a good thing. All right, Friday Peace Talks. Let's have a look at that link sheet. And I have screwed it up. If y'all stick around long enough, you will learn that indeed the signature of the show is me being terrible with the very technology I use to pay my bills. Well, I do have one more clip that I'm going to pull up. Stand by, though, because now I got to find it the old way. I don't know if you guys remember when I played that, like, real brief soundbite that whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police. For some reason, because of the way I chose to play that. That is now in my recommendations every day. Every GD day. Ridiculous. Ooh. All right, we got it here. Well, this is the big one, folks. We're talking about Fani Willis. We're talking about Georgia. Whether you believe Trump did nothing wrong or you believe he's done everything wrong, the reality is that we are going to hash it out in court, or at least it appears that way. It's a wild one. Here's that fella from the Midas Touch talking about it. Not one of the brothers. It is the soft-spoken lawyer. How come I can't remember his name? We'll see in a second. But I'm going to record this. Well, the big one is coming. To my personal disappointment, we have not yet heard peep one from Merrick Garland regarding that, coup in January 6th. And that is not an opinion of mine, by the way. That's an opinion of the folks who decide what a coup is. There are organizations in our world that literally call out overthrows of government here and there as either coups or not. And this was an attempted coup in the United States in January 6th. Jack Smith, we don't know how he's doing with the documents case. Merrick Garland, we don't know. Thing one, apparently they think it's okay to keep us in the dark. And I got to tell you, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you ought to know where that stands, because now we got Trump running for president. I think that's relevant information for us to have. But Fani Willis has been pretty upfront about what's going on, and it looks like August is when we are going to find out whether or not the state of Georgia believes Trump tried to interfere with the election in Georgia.
Here to talk about the time. Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about the timing and the nature of the anticipated charges from Fulton County DA Fani Willis. So, Willis last week sent out a letter to all kinds of court personnel saying basically, clear your decks for the first few weeks in August. My staff is all going to be working from home except...
So there's our date, first few weeks in August. Now, what can we glean about who's going to be involved? Well, we know who they were investigating.
Except for a few members of my leadership team. Judges are going to be away then, etc. But making plans about a few weeks from the first few weeks in August, a not very subtle signal that that's when she intends to bring down the charges against not just Donald Trump, but potentially many other defendants, 15 or more. So let's wind this back a bit. First of all, notice you wouldn't normally, and in fact, it would be unfair to a defendant, advertise when you're going to bring charges that a grand jury hasn't even heard yet. But that's the bed that Trump makes for himself with all his rabble rousing. So he has already totally tried to vilify Fani Willis.
Yeah. I would normally be all about deferring to the rights of the person who is going to be on trial, and leaning on the side of being more generous to them, generally speaking, than not. However, I'm mostly a fan of just dealing with reality. The reality is Trump has been trying to affect these investigations at every turn. Look at what Roger Stone is accused of. Look at the multiple accusations of Trump and the acknowledgement of the courts that Trump is obstructing justice. Every time Trump gets out there and says, the court's corrupt, there are a bunch of Democrats that are just trying to get me, that interferes with the process. If you want to prove that, the correct way to do that is in court. You say that after you've made your case in court. Trump's response to that would be, I can't get a fair trial. They're all Democrat judges. Doesn't matter if they're judges he literally appointed. He has said that about them. So obviously this guy is not taking the U.S. justice system seriously. And as a result, I think it is necessary for the U.S. justice system to treat him like they would anybody else who is not honestly participating. Here we go. Honestly participating in it. To be realistic. And that is what she is doing here. She's saying prepare because these are serious charges. And it looks like the person she's going to charge is going to be not a gentleman about it.
Called her racist and the like, and rev up his clearly dangerous.
No evidence of that, by the way. Just in case it's news to you, that you're not racist just because you are in conflict with somebody that is of a different race than you. Of course.
Followers to be ready, and Willis has been taking it very seriously. She previously asked for the FBI to come in and give her a security assessment. She has passed out bulletproof vests to members of her team, and it's just what happens as a result of Trump's hijinks. It's a little bit like the E. Jean Carroll case. Normally, a defendant could wait for the very, very last minute and would, if only to kind of force the prosecution to spend resources preparing for a cross-examination before saying whether they were going to testify or not. But in the E. Jean Carroll case, the judge forced Trump to say it earlier because it would be such a logistical challenge that they needed advance warning. So this is, the special wages of Trump and a very kind of concrete demonstration of how he, on the one hand, rides high in the political system, but it seems almost inversely proportional to his fortunes in the legal system. Here, his very, not just political prominence, but political style and, fomenting and, complete populism means that she's got to give this warning in advance. Second, think about it for a moment. The grand jury that could return charges hasn't even sat yet. It begins to sit in early July.
Overall, I'm curious to know, what do you guys think so far of just the handling of Donald Trump in this specific case? You know what? I'm saying Donald Trump. I don't think he's been officially named. Just the handling of the defendants, plural, that we know in this case. I gotta say, to me, my instinct is to fully agree with everything Fani Willis has done here. Certainly, you cannot disagree with the investigation itself. There is that phone call between Trump and the Attorney General. Look, even if you don't want it investigated, I do. And it may turn out that despite how it sounded to me, everything was miraculously fine. But the place to decide that is a court of law, because what it sounds to me like happened pressure was put on an attorney general to illegally overturn an election. The fake electors that have been interviewed, that was fraud, in my opinion. And it needs to not just be conflicting opinions. We need the facts established. By law, what was this? Was this a violation of the law or was it not? What is appropriate to do for a party in power from here on out? Will it be, ask yourself this, if you're on the side of Trump. If Joe Biden acts the way that you say Trump was allowed to act in 2024, will you be okay with that? For example, if the majority of people in this country, if the majority of states go to Trump, and then Joe Biden says, there's been some confusion about who they were voting for, we're going to put in our own electors in the states needed for me to become president, and they're going to decide. Would you be okay with that? This is where principles come in. It's not about whether or not you like the individuals involved. It's about whether or not we're going to lay down some rules for how democracy works. So far, I agree with everything Fani Willis has done, including her openness about the case. Because Ronald Reagan allowed to go free for Iran-Contra. George H.W. Bush, same thing. He was vice president at the time, allowed to walk free and then be president. You know what? Bill Clinton, he got punished, but not for the right things, in my opinion. And I can't state a crime that I know he did, but I don't like him. Go on to George H.W. Bush. He lied to us. He lied to the American people about the reasons for attacking a country, Iraq. I don't like Saddam Hussein, but I'm not going to go to war on a lie. But apparently, yes, I am, because that's what happened and there was no punishment for it. I don't even like Obama all that much, if I'm being real with you. I don't think he did anything illegal. But my point is, we have had distasteful president after distasteful president, a lot of which have done illegal things and have been allowed to get away with it. Richard Nixon, with the Chenault affair, fully betrayed the country during wartime, actual treason, by sabotaging peace talks. And then again, betrayed democracy with sedition. Tried to break in to the DNC. Did have his goons break into the DNC to steal information that, frankly, he didn't even need because he won that election. But he was pardoned. We have a history in this country of letting people go. So we need to communicate to the American people that we're not going to do that anymore. And it's not enough to get folks like Rhodes behind bars. Good. I'm glad that guy was a terrorist. That's not me jeering in that case. That's a literal definition. Somebody using force to achieve political ends. Somebody using coercion with physical means to induce a political outcome. That's a terrorist. What he was. But it's not enough to get him. Sedition involves working with a group, an organized effort. And it really looks like Trump and his staff were the organizers of this sedition. So we need it dealt with, and we need assurances from our government that it is being dealt with. And it looks like we're getting that in August. Let's let this man continue. Wrap it up for us.
So she's already anticipating that a grand jury that hasn't sit will hear evidence and return charges. That's pretty noteworthy. And what charges could they be? Well, she's got to be going now by the script written by the special grand jury that gave an advisory opinion to her. Obviously, she may have received that opinion and thought the better of some of their recommendations, But remember just how broad their recommendations were. We know from the kind of 15-minute fame tour of the four-person that in excess of a dozen figures were recommended to be indicted by them in sort of two separate cases, a whole Georgia electors case and a Trump case. Start with the Georgia electors case. That's advanced in the last few weeks. We know that Willis has offered immunity and it's been taken by many of the electors. So obviously she's building a very strong case against the most culpable actors with the testimony of all the people who acted with them. And so the head of the Republican Party and a couple others who were really scheming to basically file false certifications saying we are electors from the state of Georgia when they were nothing of the sort. They are really very much in the crosshairs. But then also remember all the people who testified or were subjects of the testimony before the special grand jury. Rudy Giuliani, who's been told he's a target, so I think we can expect him. Mark Meadows, who eluded it, but we know she wanted. Lindsey Graham seems that would be a very aggressive move, but it seems possible, and on and on. So the headline here is she's going to start presenting. This is unusually transparent, and it's required to be by the nature of Donald Trump. So she's going to start presenting to a grand jury in July and ask them to return charges at the beginning of August. I think she'd be shooting for, and to safely, she says, those first 3 weeks. And perhaps more importantly, there will be one, Georgia versus Donald Trump, the core case. Remember the audio tape from Raffensperger, just need 11,780 votes, a very solid case. It seems to me on the facts. Just a little aside, I'll come back to this in future YouTubes, but it's going to be challenging. There'll be a lot of litigation over this because of the basic feature. We have this in Manhattan too, of a state court going after a former president, and there may be very unusual claims to litigate, some defenses by Trump, attempts to bring it into federal court and the like. But anyway, on the facts, a really sprawling case, not just against Trump, but I'm expecting Giuliani, and I'm expecting and hoping I try not to be specifically partisan, but Mark Meadows has been a very culpable actor all the way along, and he has totally stayed out of trouble, in part because of deft lawyering. I see him as getting charged, and I see him as deserving the charges. And so that's what we can also expect in August. So as the week.
Almost no notes on that one. General thoughts. I'm in agreement. I think I would not be okay with a prosecutor at any level being so open about the goings on before it is actually in court. Except that we have a history with this kind of suspected criminal, specifically in the United States, and it's exacerbated. So that to that point, just staying there for a moment. So the people have a right to demand knowledge about this, to demand that reassurance that progress is happening on this prosecution. Because the ugly truth of America is we do not hold our powerful people accountable historically. So this is truly the government saying, look, we know, and those days are over. Good. By the way, Republican, Democrat, I don't care. I don't care. Who was that guy that was couldn't stop sending pictures of his genitals to folks? Anthony Weiner, of course. I was delighted that he got booted out of public life by the Democrats. Good. I don't want corrupt people in power. And I go up against Republicans because they don't self-regulate. They just don't. And further, with Fani Willis, to the other point, there are literal, practical safety measures to get in place. When you have a person on trial who has shown a history of interfering with the trial, trying to use the public to interfere with the trial. Even if you adore Donald Trump, I don't know why you would, but even if you do, you can't deny he tries to use the public to interfere with court cases. That is not how we deal with court cases. And if Fani Willis would have pretended like Trump was any other defendant, or Trump's people were part of a party that were just a normal group of people, I would have been disappointed. And I would have thought she was foolish, frankly. I think it is just, frankly, practical to give the court a lengthy heads up about what they'll be doing and how prepared they should be. And I think this is all but written confirmation that the people who I believe are responsible for part of the coup that took place in Georgia are actually going to get prosecuted. By the way, my own Attorney General, Dana Nessel, she's working on a state-level investigation to the fake elector plot. I want to know where that is. It's been some time. It's been quite a long time. We got another election coming up. A lot of those people are going to try to get in power. I don't want them able to. Or hell, even if they are legally allowed to run despite having betrayed the country, the fake electors in Michigan, I want the public to have full knowledge of what they were up to. I don't want people saying, oh, but they didn't really. Oh, but they must have known something we didn't know. Let's know exactly what they knew. Let's know exactly what everybody did and why they did it. Truth is what we're after, at the end of the day. And brace yourself. It might be that the people you support, whether you're left or right, it might be that neither of them acted exactly like you thought they did. We'll find out. The way to do that, though, is to put them in a place where lying is illegal. That's a court of law. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Jesse Jennings says, you lack proof. Interesting. Oh, what is this in reference to? So we got, for future reference, with Jesse here, I don't want everybody going against one person. If you can, when you can. Once you see that somebody else is talking with them, even if you think you've got a great point, just ignore it. Just ignore it. Fair fight rules, for one, and two, it's not great training for anybody to get used to debating 10-on-1. So let it stay 1-on-1. Okay, Mars Falcon says, prove my claim, to Jesse, I'm assuming, that right-wingers see a person or entity, then go hunting for a crime. Do your own research is not an answer. Simply share your evidence. All right, let me jump down. Let me see if there's something I can address here. That's a good point, though. Ooh. Mars Falcon adds, Bob Beaupres, the longtime treasurer of CPAC, the annual extremist clown show, ouch, resigned last night, citing financial questions surrounding Matt Schlapp, the organization's leader. Yeah. and so on and so forth. Jesse Jennings says, I'm used to it and it's no problem. Well, good. But this is for everybody. Jesse, I want you to be better at debating, and I want them to be better at debating as well. I think if all of us get better at making our points, I think we're going to largely find out that even though we disagree about what the problems are, we will eventually find out that we agree that we shouldn't have any of them. We shouldn't have people, minorities being bullied. Even if you don't agree that minorities are being bullied, you'll probably agree that we shouldn't have minorities bullied. And you'll probably also, if it turns out that, you believe that space lasers are threatening the California wilds. I don't think that's happening, but I can agree that that shouldn't happen. We'll find some common ground if we just learn to talk without devolving. Patrick Thibodeau, I'm trying civil debate, but he won't respond. I know asking for evidence is over the top, but I can't take him serious. I think the issue here is that we have multiple people talking at once. And it's deceptive with text because you might think, just go back and read this or that. But it tends to all get lost, and we lose focus. The anti-corporatist. Ooh, did you hear? Hunter Biden opened a computer shop. It's called Hunter's Laptops. Hey, here's some common ground. I think the children of powerful people shouldn't get to profit off the powerful parents, regardless of whether they're Trump's kids or Biden's. Mars Falcon. Feel you, Patrick Thibodeau. I get that a lot. A longer list of titles. Yeah. I would say though, Jesse, no, it's certainly not projection. And dawned on me, says Jake, there's delusions, then there's delusions. Not understanding reality is a delusion. The anti-corporatist says, to be frank, a lot of my right-wing friends don't know that the Rothschilds or Soros were Jewish. Oh, fun, good. Let me just go back a little bit. Here's the deal, Jesse. And this is, I'm not judging here. I'm just being real with you. As somebody who is pretty staunchly on the left, what they are describing is the experience I have had truly, every single time I've had any sort of discussion with somebody on the right wing. It's a laundry list of statistics, almost all of which are either made up or and a rather blatantly intentional misrepresentation. And if you try to focus down onto any one thing, the subject gets changed. And I think there is projection, certainly. I think the folks on the right, at least from my perspective, believe. I think the folks on the right truly know that they don't have genuine facts and figures that they're working with, and I think the assumption is that the other side must be the same way. But I got to break it to you, man. That's not so. The folks on the left, we almost never agree with each other, but the reason for that is we are all looking at the same facts, and they are real facts, and there aren't clear answers for the real facts, generally speaking. I mean, there are some. We know Medicare for all would be cheaper for everybody. You would pay less in taxes than you would pay for health insurance. There are some things that are just, these are facts, and there's not much to be said about them. But largely speaking, a lot of it's nuance. But on the right, it's just, truthfully, if you're wondering where the attitude of the audience comes from, it's not a place of hate. It's a place of annoyance. We keep having these same discussions, and it always always goes the same way. You get the gish gavel, where someone's just going on and on with just saying vaguely offensive sounding things or important sounding things, but there's no substance to it. And if you try to focus in on a set of facts, the person you're talking to, if they're a right-winger, again, this is my personal experience. Maybe I'm wrong. And by the way, share with me a place I can go to find some genuine debate. I would like to have a serious discussion about this. But generally speaking, what ends up happening is they avoid discussion of reality. The case in point, we've been talking about, the insurrection. And haven't seen a hell of a lot of defense of this stuff. And I'm not sure how you even remotely consider voting for a party that would have Trump, a guy that tried to undo democracy, as its leader. I don't think that's a serious political plan. I think it's got serious consequences if those people end up being the majority in this country, God help us. Or even if the states that they control, because we do not have a true representative democracy, if the states that they control end up adding up to enough to make the majority of the rest of us have to have that person as our president. I think that's serious, but I don't think it's a serious political philosophy. Because there's not serious discussion had about it. But let me tell you this. The folks that are willing to show up to places that disagree with them, they are how we are going to get out of this without a civil war. It's going to be, Jesse, you showing up here. It's going to be these folks who are regular members of the Wicked community showing up elsewhere. It's going to be your old pal Jake inviting people onto the stream. And by the way, Jesse, you would be a perfect person to ask. If you've got a suggestion for somebody that I should talk to get educated on, not necessarily even agreeing with you, but just being able to accurately state what it is you believe, write write what you can do at WYCDnetwork.com. In fact, let me put that in here. And I know all about. Oh my God, I butchered that. Oh no. I know all about Ray Epps. That is kind of effed up, man. That is a conspiracy theory that has no foundation in truth. Okay, there's my email. Yeah, Ray Epps is not an FBI plant. I don't know what to tell you. Yes, he was just a rabid supporter. Look at what Ray Epps has said himself. Look at his history. You know what? That's fine. Let's do it right now. We may as well. Here's the way you can jump to the point with most things. I've typed in Ray Epps Snopes. All right, here's what Snopes has to say. Who is Ray Epps? The conspiratorial claim that the attack on the U.S. Capitol was a false flag conducted by federal agents hinges largely on the identity of one man. On January 5th, 2021, a day before... Oh, what the hell? We can do this together. You got a bonus segment. Stand by, brother. Because you know what? Truth be told, I haven't looked up this article. I've only heard what other people have to say about it. Now is a great time for me to either be wrong or right or somewhere more likely in between. Okay, let's do this. Here is Ray Epps. This is a suggestion from viewer Jesse. Thank you very much. On January 5th, 2021, a day before a mob of Outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol and delayed the certification of then-President-elect Joe Biden's electoral victory. A man was filmed encouraging people to go peacefully into the Capitol the following day. The video didn't make much noise at the time, but in the ensuing weeks and months, this person, who many identified as Ray Epps, became a central figure in a conspiracy theory claiming that federal agents had provoked the attack on the Capitol, which prompted readers to search for information about him on Snopes. Hello, Snopes. The attack on Capitol involved hundreds of Trump supporters who had become enraged by the false claim that the 2020 election was marred by widespread fraud. For the record, it was very clearly not. We knew that the entire time. And case in point, I can tell you from personal experience. At the time, I was doing local reporting, and we did whole segments about how mail-in voting was likely to work, and it worked exactly that way. And all claims around that, including with those 2 election workers that got death threats, they've just been disproven. This fact that the crowd was composed of Trump supporters is evidenced by photographs, videos, news reports, thousands of first-hand social media posts. In other words, they were saying, I am a Trump supporter and I am here, on their own social media. And testimonies from the rioters themselves. Still, some social media users, cable news hosts, and sitting members of Congress, Jesus Christ, have maintained or speculated that the riot was purposely sparked by federal agents. So who is Ray Epps? Let's just jump down to it. Epps is the owner of Naughty Barn, a wedding and event venue in Queen Creek, Arizona. According to the Daily Mail, the 60-year-old man is also a retired U.S. Marine. Epps is also a Trump supporter and appears to have long-running ties to the Oathkeepers, a far-right anti-government militia, also known as a terrorist organization. Their leader was just convicted and given 18 years in prison for sedition. That's a terrorist organization, folks. Epps is also a of the Oathkeepers, yada, yada, yada. That formed shortly after the election of surprise, former President Barack Obama. Epps was listed as the president of the Arizona chapter of the Oathkeepers. All right, Jesse, real talk. Do you need to hear more? Truly? Let's find out. I'm curious. Nobody else talked to Jesse for a while. I'd like to speak with him. Footage of him yelling at everyone to go in? Sure, yeah. Less was enough to bring charges against those Lake Owen Scheuer, who also didn't enter. Less was enough to bring charges against those like Owen Scheuer, who also didn't enter. Yeah, I would. I'm not sure what the point is there, I guess. I mean, is the question, is he an FBI plant? Nothing, there's no evidence to suggest that he was. And I guess my question for you would be, why do you want to believe he does? Not why do you believe he was an FBI plant, but why do you want to believe that he's an FBI plant? Let's hold on a second. Let's genuinely deal with that. All right, so Jesse, please, for now, ignore everybody else in the comments. And everybody else in the comments, please don't respond to Jesse. I just want to talk to him. Jesse, the question for you is, why do you want to believe that Ray Epps was an FBI plant? You just saw, I'm with Snopes on this. The guy's got a history of supporting far-right causes. The people at January 6th were there because, I mean, at the very least, you got to acknowledge the people that were attending that speech were supporters of Donald Trump, by and large. And there is nothing to suggest that he was anything other than a supporter of Donald Trump. I saw you say that somebody else who appears to have done less got charged. I don't know who that person is specifically, but I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of cases tried by different judges with different prosecutors. To me, I don't see the evidence there. It's an imperfect system, I guess. All right. The real question is, why do you want to believe that the guy was an FBI plant? No charges, favored treatment, CNN interview, Bomber Fox just let it go enough. No, this is the core of where our disagreement is as a country. We're going to figure this out. He was allowed to testify in secret. DC courts, I'm not getting an answer. And same prosecutors. Okay, well, I see you're hearing me, and you're typing answers. Answer this main question. I'll tell you why I don't want to believe that he was an FBI plant. I don't want to believe that because I that would confuse things so much. That would mean that the FBI is carrying out complex operations within our country to try to frame folks, and I don't like that would be true if that's happened. But why do you want to believe he was? Is my question for you, Jesse. And take a moment if you need a moment. It's fine, but genuinely try to answer that. I'm going to take a guess, and you tell me if I'm right. You might want to believe that Ray Epps was an FBI plant because if he wasn't, and if nobody was an FBI plant, then a bunch of Trump supporters did some real despicable behavior. They did some bad things in the name of Donald Trump. I think you want to believe that he was an FBI plant because it's not right to invade the Capitol. I think that's why you want to believe that, because you don't want a guy that would invade the Capitol on your team. Is that accurate? Well, earlier. Oh, there we go. There it is. Jesse Jennings says they're charging people for being near the Capitol, yet no charges for the guy inciting a riot. I think you're right, Jesse. I think that is suspicious. And Mars Falcon, I appreciate you, but nobody else talk right now. It's just me and Jesse talking. I think that's exactly correct. It's suspicious that that all these folks that appear, at least from my perspective, to have done what Trump said, are getting charged. But Trump isn't getting charged. Now you're saying somebody else incited the riot. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. My thoughts are this. In a court of law, where it's illegal to lie, we should figure out who started the riot. And whoever started it, whether it's who you think it was or who I think it was, we should prove with facts and evidence. And the person who started it should be punished. That's what I think. Tamara Chance, delighted to see you. Anti-corporatist, be right back. My pizza's here. If you're ever in D.C., make sure and try the Pizza Basement. Jesse Jennings says Trump said go peacefully and offered $10K National Guard. No, he didn't. We have as a matter of record that he delayed the National Guard. He requested they be delayed. But Pelosi and D.C. mayor turned it down. No, they didn't. They did not. That is a straight up lie. Or rather, you were lied to. We'll talk more about that in the future. I think this was incredibly productive, and I think that we've arrived at the place where we are going to agree. Not on who started the riot, but on the idea that the person who started the riot should be punished. I think that's a good place for us to pause. Here's our homework assignment for you and me. Let's do some soul searching. Think about the best way to establish who started the riot. My suggestion, an investigation, and then a court case to prove the facts of the investigation. Y'all, I have had a blast tonight. You've all been wonderful. I honestly feel that I have the best audience in the world. I enjoy hanging out with you. I don't even like hanging out with people in real life, but I enjoy hanging out with all you. It's just the best. We're going to keep it going. I'll see you again tomorrow. We got more of this, but for now, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.